Hello, I'm William Hildebrandt, and welcome to Access Asia. This, a special edition on tensions in the Korean peninsula. Fire and fury, an axis of evil. The U.S. has long been colorful in its language towards North Korea. America and its allies are concerned that the rogue state continues to advance its nuclear weapons program in the face of international sanctions. While the U.S. prefers a diplomatic solution, some fear the war of words could strain any chances of a breakthrough. Clement Bonnereau takes a look back at U.S. strategy through the years.
After World War II and as the Cold War began, the two global superpowers divided the Korean peninsula, previously occupied by Japan, along the 38th parallel. The Soviet Union occupied the north and the United States the south, creating two separate states. The Korean War began in 1950 when the North invaded the South, sparking a conflict that killed millions on both sides. A ceasefire was agreed in 1953, but no peace treaty was ever signed, meaning that technically North Korea, South Korea and their allies are still at war. Tensions flared up again in 1968 when Pyongyang captured the USS Pueblo, a US spy ship holding its crew captive for 11 months. Throughout the 1990s, however, both sides made efforts to normalize relations. Former US President Jimmy Carter visited Pyongyang in 1994, followed by then Secretary of State Madeleine Albright 5 years later. The two sides signed the so-called agreed framework, under which North Korea committed to freezing its nuclear program in exchange for heavy fuel oil. Implementation of the agreement, however, did not occur smoothly and came to an abrupt halt in the wake of the 9/11 attacks on US soil. In his 2002 State of the Union address, President George W. Bush labelled North Korea as part of an axis of evil, accusing it of violating the agreed framework.
Our second goal is to prevent regimes that sponsor terror from threatening America. North Korea is a regime arming with missiles and weapons of mass destruction while starving its citizens.
In response, North Korea branded Bush as a tyrant worse than Hitler and a political imbecile. The country conducted its first nuclear test in 2006, followed by another one 3 years later. In an effort to soothe tensions, however, the US took North Korea off its list of state sponsors of terrorism in return for controls on Pyongyang's nuclear installations. But talks collapsed in 2010 after North Korea ordered international monitors to leave the country. Throughout his presidency, Barack Obama pursued a policy of strategic patience towards North Korea, trying to avoid war at all costs.
We are committed to the preservation of peace and stability in Northeast Asia and on the Korean peninsula.
Despite international sanctions, North Korea has been able to develop and expand its ballistic and nuclear programs, saying the entire US territory is now within range of its intercontinental ballistic missiles. Donald Trump, meanwhile, has threatened Pyongyang with fire and fury, sparking a war of words between the two countries.
Well, North Korea is one of the most secretive countries in the world. While its nuclear ambitions have largely isolated it from the rest of the world, its ally and neighbor, China, actually offers one of the best glimpses into North Korean society and economy. This report from a Chinese border town. Sanam Shentier has more.
North Korea has been declared a threat to the entire world. Here in Dandong, however, the rogue nation has become an attraction. At first glance, this looks like any other second-tier Chinese city, but tourism continues to thrive. Dandong has become an open window to one of the most closed countries in the world, and these Chinese tourists have flocked to this boat to get a glimpse into life on the other shore.
We are moving towards North Korean territory. You can rent binoculars if you want to see how they live.
It's a 30-minute trip, and on that route, the visitors can see the military zone. Army personnel are also dotted along the riverside. But these tourists can be given a peek into the agricultural life of the north.
We can really see that they're different to us.
They're very much behind the times.
Back in Dandong, the North Korean flag flies proudly across the city, which is also a trading hub. In fact, North Korean elites, civil servants and military personnel are permitted to leave their country and travel here by bus to buy Chinese products they can't find at home. Tourists can also find trinkets from the north.
I thought the sanctions prevented the sale of gold, but if you wear a bracelet like this, you don't have to say the gold came from North Korea.
Under pressure, China has officially stopped the import of seafood. Today, very few vendors are selling North Korean merchandise.
That's dry fish from North Korea. We also have anchovies. That's a recent delivery.
For years, China has given North Korea a steady source of capital. That source no longer looks set in stone. Since February, Beijing has halted purchases of coal. But for now, on this so-called bridge of friendship, trucks carrying goods are hard at work until the next possible round of sanctions.
Well, joining us on the set is Hyung Joon Won, an acclaimed violinist from South Korea. He has a resume of a musician, trained at Julliard, and has performed around the world. With the heart of an activist, for years he's been bringing together musicians from the north and south in hopes of calming tensions. Mr. Won, where did this idea arise about trying to pursue peace through music?
Well, first, I have a family background that I'm from a separated family. And my grandmother's tomb is in North Korea that none of our families are able to visit until now. And also the story of Daniel Barenboim, who is a founder of the East-West Divan Orchestra of composing Israel and Palestine young musicians together. And, those inspiration made me to do these musical activities between North and South Korea.
A very personal quest for you. How do you recruit musicians from North and South Korea?
Well, if it happens, then we will evaluate same numbers of orchestra members from North and South Korea each, then we'll play together.
Mm-hmm. And could you tell us about how the people in both countries have received what you're trying to do?
In order to contact and promote this cultural exchange program with North Korean, there must be official permissions by two Korean governments first. And then we can do something together. But each country had shown us a positive his confirmation before. For example, Pyongyang invited our musicians to North Korea to meet and show their classical levels in 2011.
Now, I'm not sure if you know, but U.S. President Donald Trump said talking is not the answer, but I doubt he thinks music would be as well. What do you hope to accomplish?
Well, personally, I believe today's crisis by nuclear test by North Korea has happened due to a lack of communication with its relevant countries. And I believe, musical dialogue is the only way of achieving reconciliation and peace in the Korean Peninsula. And it is because music, for example, we can gather together and we can communicate in orchestra, in musical world, and we can show to the world and people we can still able to make harmony to each other by listening to another. And this is why my goal is to gather and invite all the leaders of the Korean Peninsula, including South and North Korea, and US, China, and Japan and Russia. And the leaders, they will be listening to our one orchestra performance and hope, the youth of our generations, for example, they can feel we can still make harmony by listening to each other. That's my goal, and to show to the world the value of music.
And trying to have this unity, to bridge this divide, you've chosen a very symbolic place, haven't you? I believe you brought a photograph for us. Could you explain this?
Well, I took this picture when I had a performance. It's called Panmunjom, Joint Security Area, and it was year of 2013. And I was performing here very close to the borderline. It was like 50 meters away. And this is the place that I wish to play peace concert. And it should be this place because it's the highly militarized zone in our countries, in the Korean Peninsula. And it's the armistice agreement had happened back to 1953. And after that, until now, nothing actually communication has been happened. So I chose this place to be a perfect place for all countries in the Korean Peninsula to be harmonized.
Finding a spot between the two Koreas. Well, enough talking. It's nearly the end of the program. How about a treat for us here in the studio and the viewers as well? Would you mind playing us out on something?
Yes, definitely. I wish I can play Bach Saraband because it's sad, but it's a dance. It perfectly represents our countries and our Korean Peninsula.
All right, please.
Middle East Matters, presented by Sanam Chantier.
Keep up to date on the latest from the Middle East. We bring you political, economic, and cultural events from the region in this weekly Middle Eastern program.
Middle East Matters on France 24 and France24.com.